What if the greatest source of suffering in your life is not another person, but the ways you keep betraying yourself without even realizing it? Not your ex, not your family, not the people who walked away, not the people who disappointed you. You. Not because you want to suffer, not because you are weak, and not because you deserve the pain, but because, day after day, in ways so small you barely notice them, you keep abandoning the very person who needs your love the most. Yourself. You ignore what your heart already knows. You silence your intuition when it tries to warn you. You stay in places where your peace slowly dies. You hold on to what is hurting you. You seek approval from people who cannot even give approval to themselves. And little by little, without noticing it, you drift further away from who you truly are. The Buddha taught that suffering does not begin when life hurts you. It begins when you stop being honest with yourself. It begins when you repeatedly choose fear over truth, comfort over growth, attachment over peace. And the most painful part is this: many people spend years blaming the world for wounds that were created by their own self-abandonment. Because the deepest betrayal is not when someone leaves your life. The deepest betrayal is when you leave yourself, when you stop listening to your truth, when you stop protecting your peace, when you stop believing you are worthy of a better life. So tonight, I want you to stay with me until the end. Because once you see the hidden ways you have been betraying yourself, something powerful begins to happen. The confusion starts to fade. The suffering starts to make sense. And for the first time in a long time, you may finally discover the path back to yourself. You already know what is hurting you, but you stay anyway. One of the strangest truths about human life is that most people already know what is causing their suffering long before they decide to change it. The signs are usually not hidden. The heart feels them. The mind notices them. The body carries them. Deep inside, you already know when something is not right. You know when a relationship leaves you feeling exhausted instead of peaceful. You know when a habit is slowly damaging your confidence. You know when a certain environment is draining your energy every single day. You know when a path no longer feels aligned with who you are becoming. Yet, despite knowing all of this, many people stay exactly where they are. They continue having the same conversations. They continue repeating the same patterns. They continue accepting the same pain. Not because they are blind, not because they are foolish, but because knowing the truth and acting on the truth are two very different things. Awareness is uncomfortable, but change is even more uncomfortable. And so the mind creates reasons to stay. Maybe things will improve. Maybe they will change. Maybe if I try harder. Maybe if I wait a little longer. Maybe tomorrow will be different. Days become weeks. Weeks become months. Months become years. And while life keeps moving forward, the person remains trapped in the same cycle. This is one of the quietest ways people betray themselves. Not through one big decision, but through hundreds of small moments where they ignore what their heart already knows. Many people spend years hoping that what hurts them will somehow become what heals them. They wait for respect from people who have never respected them. They wait for peace from situations that constantly create stress. They wait for happiness from choices that have only produced disappointment. And during all that waiting, they slowly lose something very important: trust in themselves. Every time your intuition speaks and you ignore it, you teach yourself that your own wisdom cannot be trusted. Every time your heart sends a warning and you silence it, you weaken your connection with yourself. Eventually, you stop listening altogether, and this creates a painful inner conflict. Part of you knows the truth, but another part keeps running from it. The Buddha taught that wisdom begins when we see reality clearly, not the reality we wish existed, not the reality we imagine, but reality exactly as it is. This sounds simple, but it takes great courage, because once you truly see something clearly, you can no longer pretend you do not know. You can no longer hide behind excuses. You can no longer blame confusion. The truth becomes impossible to ignore. Many people think suffering comes from difficult circumstances, but often suffering grows because we refuse to accept what is already obvious. We keep arguing with reality. We keep wishing things were different. We keep trying to force life to match our expectations, and that resistance creates even more pain. Real freedom begins the moment you stop running from what you already know. The moment you stop negotiating with the truth. The moment you stop abandoning yourself just to avoid discomfort. Because the truth is this: your heart has been speaking to you for a very long time. The peace you are searching for is not hidden somewhere far away. It begins the moment you finally listen. It begins the moment your actions become aligned with your deepest understanding. When what you know and what you do finally become the same, something powerful happens. The inner battle starts to disappear. The confusion becomes quieter, the mind becomes lighter, and for the first time in a long time, you begin to trust yourself again. That trust is where healing begins. That trust is where freedom begins. And that trust is what allows you to stop betraying yourself and start living in alignment with your own truth. Every time you choose approval over truth, you lose a piece of yourself. One of the most common forms of self-betrayal is so normal that most people never recognize it. It begins with a simple desire, the desire to be liked, the desire to be accepted, the desire to belong. At first, there is nothing wrong with this. Human beings naturally want connection. We all want to feel understood. We all want to feel valued. We all want to feel that we matter. But the problem begins when the desire for acceptance becomes stronger than the desire to be honest with yourself. Slowly, without realizing it, many people start changing who they are in order to gain approval from others. They become careful with every word. They hide parts of their personality. They avoid expressing what they truly feel. They pretend to agree when they actually disagree. They say yes when their heart is desperately saying no. They smile when they are hurting. They stay silent when they need to speak. And little by little, they begin building a version of themselves that exists only to keep other people comfortable. The tragic part is that this often happens gradually, that they do not even notice what they are losing. At first, approval feels rewarding. When people praise you, it feels good. When people accept you, it feels safe. When people approve of your choices, it gives temporary comfort. But the more you depend on approval, the more power you hand over to other people. Your happiness starts depending on their reactions. Your confidence starts depending on their opinions. Your self-worth starts depending on whether they approve of you or not. And this creates a life filled with anxiety. Because no matter how hard you try, you can never control what other people think. You can spend your entire life trying to please everyone and still disappoint someone. You can sacrifice your peace for others and still not be enough for them. You can give everything you have and still face criticism. This is why seeking approval becomes an endless race that nobody wins. The finish line keeps moving. The validation never feels complete. The acceptance never feels permanent. And deep inside, an uncomfortable emptiness begins to grow. Why? Because while you were busy gaining acceptance from others, you were slowly losing acceptance from yourself. Many people know exactly what this feels like. They wake up one day and realize they have spent years living according to expectations that were never truly their own. They chose careers they did not want. They stayed in relationships that no longer felt right. They followed paths that looked successful on the outside, but felt empty on the inside. Not because they lacked intelligence, not because they lacked courage, but because they became addicted to being approved of. The Buddha taught that attachment is one of the roots of suffering. So, most people think of attachment only in terms of relationships or possessions. But attachment to approval can be even more dangerous, because it quietly controls your entire identity. It convinces you that your value comes from outside yourself. It teaches you to measure your worth through other people's opinions. And the moment you believe that, your peace becomes fragile. One compliment can make you feel worthy. One criticism can make you question yourself. One rejection can make you feel broken. Your emotional state becomes controlled by forces outside your control. This is not freedom. This is dependence. True freedom begins when you stop asking the world for permission to be yourself. True freedom begins when you stop shaping your life around the expectations of people who are not living your life. True freedom begins when your inner truth becomes more important than external approval. This does not mean becoming selfish. It does not mean ignoring others. It does not mean refusing feedback. It simply means refusing to abandon yourself in order to gain acceptance. It means respecting your own voice, trusting your own wisdom, honoring your own values, and having the courage to stand by them even when not everyone agrees. Because the truth is this: the people who live the most authentic lives are not the people who are loved by everyone. They are the people who no longer need everyone to love them. They understand that peace is more valuable than approval. They understand that authenticity is more valuable than popularity. And they understand that losing yourself to gain acceptance is one of the most painful trades a person can ever make. The moment you stop asking, "What will they think of me?" and start asking, "Am I being true to myself?" something powerful begins to change. The noise of the world becomes quieter. The fear of judgment becomes weaker. The connection with yourself becomes stronger. And for the first time in a long time, you begin living from your own truth instead of someone else's expectations. That is the moment you stop betraying yourself. And that is the moment you begin reclaiming your life. Most painful prison is the one you keep calling comfort. Most people believe that suffering always feels uncomfortable. But that is not always true. Some forms of suffering become so familiar that they start feeling normal. In fact, silence isn't the most dangerous things that can happen in life. Is becoming comfortable inside something that is slowly destroying your peace. You may already know what this feels like. Perhaps it is a relationship that no longer brings joy, but feels impossible to leave. Perhaps it is a daily routine that leaves you empty but feels safer than change. Perhaps it is a version of yourself that you outgrew years ago, yet you continue carrying it because it feels familiar. This is the prison that traps millions of people. Not a prison built from walls, not a prison built from chains, but a prison built from comfort. A comfort that slowly steals your growth. A comfort that slowly steals your confidence. A comfort that slowly steals the life you were meant to live. The strange thing about these prisons is that they rarely look dangerous. From the outside, everything appears normal. Your life may look stable. Your routine may look predictable. Nothing seems obviously wrong. Yet deep inside, something feels missing. There is a quiet heaviness. A feeling that life should feel more alive than this. A feeling that you were meant for more than simply repeating the same days over and over again. But instead of listening to that feeling, many people silence it. They tell themselves they should be grateful. They tell themselves not to complain. They tell themselves that everyone feels this way, and so they continue. Month after month, year after year, remaining inside situations that no longer nourish their soul. The Buddha understood something profound about human nature. People often cling to familiar suffering because they fear unfamiliar freedom. Think about that for a moment. Many people would rather stay inside pain they understand than step into a future they cannot predict. Not because the future is worse, but because the unknown feels frightening. The mind always prefers certainty, even when that certainty is making you unhappy. This is why people stay in relationships that drain them. This is why people stay trapped in old habits. This is why people keep repeating the same emotional patterns. Because familiarity creates an illusion of safety. But safety and peace are not always the same thing. Just because something feels familiar does not mean it is healthy. Just because something is comfortable does not mean it is helping you grow. Sometimes the very thing you call comfort is actually keeping you small. Sometimes the life you have become used to is the exact life that is preventing your transformation. Growth has always required leaving something behind. The old version of yourself cannot travel with you forever. The old fears cannot travel with you forever. The old limitations cannot travel with you forever. At some point, you must choose between comfort and growth. And most people do not realize that every day they avoid that choice, they are quietly choosing the prison. The tragedy is not that people fail. The tragedy is that many people never truly try. They spend years dreaming about a different life, imagining a different future, hoping things will somehow change. Yet, they continue protecting the very habits, beliefs, and environments that keep them stuck. Nothing changes because nothing is released. Buddhist wisdom teaches that life is movement. Everything changes, everything evolves, everything flows. When you resist that natural movement, suffering appears. You begin fighting against life itself. You begin holding on to things that were only meant to be temporary. And eventually, what once felt safe begins to feel heavy. What once felt comfortable begins to feel exhausting. What once felt familiar begins to feel like a cage. Many people think freedom arrives when circumstances change. But freedom often begins much earlier. It begins the moment you become honest with yourself. The moment you admit that what feels comfortable is no longer helping you grow. The moment you stop pretending that familiar pain is peace. The moment you stop calling your prison a home. Because deep down, your soul always knows. It knows when you are expanding. It knows when you are shrinking. It knows when you are alive. And it knows when you are merely existing. The most powerful transformations in life begin when a person finally says, "I cannot stay here anymore." Not because I hate where I am, but because I respect who I am becoming. That is the moment everything starts changing. That is the moment the prison door begins to open. And that is the moment you stop betraying yourself by choosing comfort over growth. Because the life waiting for you on the other side of fear is often far more beautiful than the comfort you are struggling to protect. Your mind keeps telling lies that you mistake for reality. One of the greatest causes of suffering is not what happens around you. It is what happens inside your mind. Most people spend their lives fighting battles that never actually happen. They worry about conversations that have not taken place. They fear outcomes that have not arrived. They imagine problems that do not exist. And yet the pain they feel is real. Their heart races, their body becomes tense, their peace disappears. All because the mind created a story and convinced them it was reality. This is one of the mind's most powerful illusions. It takes a possibility and turns it into a certainty. It takes a fear and turns it into a prediction. It takes a thought and turns it into an identity. And before long, you are no longer responding to life as it is. You are responding to a version of life created by your own mind. Think about how often this happens. Someone does not reply to your message. Immediately, the mind begins creating stories. Maybe they are upset with me. Maybe they do not care about me. Maybe I did something wrong. Hours later, you discover they were simply busy. But during those hours, you suffered because of a story that was never true. This happens every day. The mind fills empty spaces with fear. It fills uncertainty with negative assumptions. It fills silence with imagined problems. And because these thoughts happen automatically, most people never question them. They simply believe them. The Buddha understood this deeply. He taught that the untrained mind is one of the greatest sources of suffering. Not because the mind is evil, but because the mind is constantly creating, constantly interpreting, constantly judging, constantly predicting. It rarely stays with what is actually happening. Instead, it jumps into the future. It replays the past. It searches for threats. It creates endless mental noise. The problem is not that thoughts appear. Thoughts will always appear. The problem begins when you assume every thought is telling the truth. Imagine sitting beside a river. Leaves float by on the water. Some are large, some are small, some move quickly, some move slowly. Thoughts are exactly the same. They appear, they pass, they disappear. But most people do not watch their thoughts. They jump onto them, they ride them, they become lost inside them. A single fearful thought appears, then another, then another. Soon, an entire world of anxiety has been created, yet nothing in reality has actually changed. Only the story inside the mind has changed. This is why two people can experience the exact same situation and react completely differently. One person sees a challenge, the other sees a disaster. One person sees an opportunity, the other sees a threat. The event is the same. The difference is the story being told by the mind. Many people spend years believing they are trapped by circumstances, but often they are trapped by interpretations. They are trapped by meanings they created. They are trapped by assumptions they never questioned. They are trapped by fears they accepted as facts. The mind says, "You are not good enough." You believe it. The mind says, "You will fail." You believe it. The mind says, "Nobody cares about you." You believe it. The mind says, "You will never change." You believe it. And eventually, these thoughts become the walls of an invisible prison. A prison built entirely from beliefs. The most dangerous part is that the prison feels real. Because the mind repeats these stories so often that they begin to feel like truth. But repetition does not create truth. A thought can appear 1,000 times and still be false. A fear can return every day and still never happen. A worry can follow you for years and still have no connection to reality. This is why awareness is so powerful. The moment you become aware of your thoughts, you create space between yourself and the story. You begin observing instead of automatically believing. You begin questioning instead of reacting. You begin seeing the difference between reality and imagination. And that difference changes everything. Buddhist wisdom teaches that peace is not found by controlling every thought. Peace is found by no longer becoming a prisoner of every thought. You do not need to fight the mind. You do not need to silence the mind. You do not need to win a war against your thoughts. You simply need to stop treating every thought as a command. You simply need to remember that thoughts are visitors. They come. They stay for a while, then they leave. But awareness remains. The sky remains even when clouds appear. The ocean remains even when waves rise. And your deeper awareness remains even when the mind becomes noisy. The moment you understand this, something beautiful begins to happen. Fear loses some of its power. Overthinking loses some of its control. Anxiety begins to loosen its grip, because you finally realize that not everything your mind says deserves your trust. Some thoughts deserve attention. Some thoughts deserve compassion. And some thoughts deserve nothing more than a smile as you watch them pass by. The greatest freedom is not controlling your mind. The greatest freedom is realizing that you are more than the voice inside your head. And the moment you stop believing every lie your mind creates, you begin returning to reality. You begin returning to peace. And most importantly, you stop betraying yourself by turning fearful thoughts into unquestioned truths. You cannot find peace while clinging to what destroys it. One of the greatest contradictions in human life is that people desperately want peace, yet they continue holding on to the very things that keep taking it away. They want freedom, but they cling to the chains. They want healing, but they keep reopening old wounds. They want a new life, but they refuse to release the old one. And without realizing it, they become trapped between what they desire and what they refuse to let go of. This is one of the most painful forms of self-betrayal, because the suffering is not only coming from what happened, it is coming from the refusal to release what happened. Many people believe their pain exists because of a person, but often the real pain exists because of the attachment that remains long after the person is gone. The relationship ended, but the attachment stayed. The moment passed, but the attachment stayed. The disappointment happened years ago, but the attachment stayed. The mind keeps returning to the same memory, the same conversation, the same regret, the same loss, again and again, as if replaying it enough times will somehow change the outcome. But it never does. The past never changes. Only the present moment gets sacrificed. The Buddha taught that attachment is one of the deepest roots of suffering. Not because love is wrong, not because caring is wrong, but because clinging creates resistance. It creates a battle against reality. Life says, this moment is over. Attachment says, I want it back. Life says, this chapter has ended. Attachment says, I am not ready. Life says, move forward. Attachment says, stay here. And this inner conflict becomes exhausting. Imagine carrying a heavy stone everywhere you go. At first, it feels difficult. But after years of carrying it, something strange happens. You become used to the weight. You stop questioning it. You forget what it feels like to walk freely. This is exactly what emotional attachment does. Many people become so familiar with their emotional burdens that they start believing the burden is part of who they are. They carry old heartbreak, old anger, old guilt, old disappointments, old versions of themselves. And because they have carried these things for so long, they begin identifying with them. They no longer say, I experienced pain. They say, I am broken. They no longer say, I went through loss. They say, I am my loss. The attachment becomes part of their identity. And this is where suffering deepens, because now they are not only holding on to the past, they are building their future around it. Many people spend years emotionally attached to a version of life that no longer exists. A relationship that ended, a dream that failed, a person who changed, a chapter that closed. Yet their heart remains stuck there. Meanwhile, life continues moving forward. New opportunities appear. New experiences arrive. New growth becomes possible. But attachment keeps their attention facing backward. And whatever direction your attention constantly faces, eventually becomes your reality. This is why some people remain emotionally trapped for years. Not because healing is impossible, but because part of them is still refusing to let go. There is a hidden comfort in attachment, even painful attachment. Because letting go means accepting reality. Letting go means accepting that something is over. Letting go means accepting that some answers may never come. Letting go means accepting uncertainty. And for many people, uncertainty feels more frightening than suffering. So they choose familiar pain over unfamiliar freedom. But Buddhist wisdom teaches something beautiful. It teaches that letting go is not losing. It is making space. When you release what no longer serves you, you create room for something new to enter. New peace, new clarity, new understanding, new life. The hands that are tightly holding yesterday cannot fully receive tomorrow. That is why letting go is not an act of weakness. It is an act of courage. It takes courage to stop revisiting old wounds. It takes courage to stop chasing what already left. It takes courage to stop asking life to return what it has already taken away. And it takes courage to trust that peace is waiting on the other side. Many people think healing means forgetting, but healing does not mean forgetting. Healing means remembering without suffering. Healing means thinking about the past without becoming trapped in it. Healing means carrying the wisdom while releasing the weight. The event may remain in your memory, but it no longer controls your heart. That is true freedom. The truth is, life will always change. People will come and go. Situations will rise and fall. Nothing remains exactly the same forever. The more you fight this reality, the more pain you create. The more you accept this reality, the more peace you discover. Because peace does not come from holding on. Peace comes from trusting the flow of life. It comes from understanding that not everything is meant to stay. Some people enter your life to teach you. Some experiences arrive to transform you. Some chapters exist only to prepare you for what comes next. And when their purpose is complete, they must be released. The moment you stop clinging to what is taking your peace, something remarkable begins to happen. Your heart becomes lighter. Your mind becomes quieter. Your energy returns. The future begins to open again. And for the first time in a long time, you realize that peace was never hiding from you. It was simply waiting for you to loosen your grip. Because you cannot hold on to what destroys your peace and expect peace to remain. Sooner or later, you must choose the attachment or the freedom, the past or the present, the weight or the peace. And the moment you choose peace, you stop betraying yourself and begin healing in ways you never thought possible. The life you want is waiting beyond the fear you keep obeying. There is a painful truth that many people spend years avoiding. The life they dream about is often on the other side of a fear they refuse to face. The peace they want, the confidence they want, the freedom they want, the growth they want, the happiness they want. All of it is waiting beyond a door that fear keeps telling them not to open. And so they wait. They tell themselves they will start when they feel ready. They will change when they feel confident. They will take action when they feel certain. They will move forward when fear finally disappears. But for most people, that day never comes, because fear was never meant to disappear first. Courage comes first, then confidence follows. Most people have this completely backwards. They believe confident people act. But in reality, confident people become confident because they acted. They took steps while feeling uncertain. They moved forward while feeling afraid. They trusted themselves before they had proof, and because of that, their lives changed. Meanwhile, countless others remain exactly where they are. Not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack talent, not because they lack potential, but because they keep obeying fear. Fear becomes their invisible leader. It quietly makes decisions for them. It chooses what risks they take. It chooses what opportunities they pursue. It chooses what dreams they abandon. And most importantly, it chooses how small they remain. The strange thing about fear is that it often disguises itself as logic. It sounds reasonable. It sounds practical. It sounds wise. The mind says, "Wait a little longer. You are not ready yet. What if you fail? What if people judge you? What if things go wrong? What if you regret it?" And because these thoughts sound convincing, people listen. They postpone their growth. They postpone their happiness. They postpone their lives. Years pass. Nothing changes. The dream remains a dream. The goal remains a goal. The future remains distant. Not because it was impossible, but because fear successfully convinced them to stay where they were. The Buddha understood something that many people never realize. Fear itself is not the enemy. Fear is simply a visitor. It appears whenever you approach something important, whenever you are about to grow, whenever you are about to change, whenever you are about to leave an old version of yourself behind. Fear arrives. This is natural. In fact, if there is no fear, there is often no growth. Think about the biggest changes in your life, the moments that transformed you, the moments that made you stronger, the moments that shaped who you are today. Most of them probably involved uncertainty. Most of them probably involved discomfort. Most of them probably involved fear. And yet those moments became some of the most valuable experiences of your life. Why? Because growth rarely happens inside comfort. Comfort maintains who you are. Challenge transforms who you are. This is why fear and growth often travel together. The problem is not feeling afraid. The problem is believing fear should decide your future. Many people treat fear like a warning sign. But sometimes fear is actually a doorway leading toward a better version of yourself. The version of yourself that speaks honestly. The version of yourself that trusts deeply. The version of yourself that stops settling. The version of yourself that finally begins living instead of merely surviving. Imagine standing at the edge of a forest. Behind you is everything familiar, everything predictable, everything safe. Ahead of you is a path you have never walked before. The path is uncertain. You cannot see where it leads. And because you cannot see the destination, fear tells you to turn back. But what fear never tells you is this: the person you are meant to become lives somewhere along that path. The peace you are searching for lies somewhere along that path. The freedom you crave lives somewhere along that path. Yet most people never discover it because they never take the first step. They spend their entire lives standing at the edge, thinking, planning, worrying, imagining, but never moving, and every year that passes strengthens the prison. Not because life is stopping them, but because fear is. Buddhist wisdom teaches that life is impermanent. everything changes. Everything moves. Everything flows. When you refuse to move because of fear, you begin resisting the natural flow of life, and resistance always creates suffering. The more you resist growth, the more trapped you feel. The more trapped you feel, the more fear grows, and the cycle continues. But the moment you take even one small step, something begins to shift. You realize that fear was never as powerful as it appeared. You realize that uncertainty is survivable. You realize that growth is possible. You realize that the mind was exaggerating dangers that never arrived. And with every step forward, your trust in yourself becomes stronger. This is how freedom is built. Not through giant leaps, not through perfect decisions, not through waiting for certainty, but through small acts of courage repeated over time. One honest conversation, one difficult choice, one healthy boundary, one new beginning, one step, then another, until one day you look back and realize that the life you once dreamed about is now your reality. Not because fear disappeared, but because you stopped obeying it. The truth is, fear has stolen enough from you already. It has stolen opportunities. It has stolen peace. It has stolen confidence. It has stolen time. Do not allow it to steal your future as well, because the life you want is not hiding from you. It is not impossible. It is not out of reach. It is simply waiting on the other side of the fear you keep listening to. And the moment you choose courage over comfort, action over hesitation, and growth over safety, you stop betraying yourself. You begin becoming the person you were always capable of becoming. And that is where true transformation begins. No one can value you until you stop abandoning yourself. One of the deepest forms of self-betrayal happens so quietly that many people never notice it. It is not caused by a dramatic mistake. It is not caused by one painful decision. It happens little by little, day after day, whenever you continuously place yourself at the bottom of your own priority list, whenever you ignore your own needs, whenever you dismiss your own feelings, whenever you sacrifice your peace to make everyone else comfortable, whenever you treat yourself as if you matter less than everyone around you. At first, these actions may seem harmless. In fact, they may even look like kindness. You tell yourself you are being generous. You tell yourself you are being patient. You tell yourself you are being understanding. But there is a difference between kindness and self-abandonment. There is a difference between compassion and constantly neglecting yourself. Many people spend years giving their energy to everyone else while slowly running empty inside. They become the person everyone can depend on, the person who always says yes, the person who always helps, the person who always sacrifices, the person who always understands. But behind that image is often someone who feels unseen, exhausted, and disconnected from themselves. Because while they were busy taking care of everyone else, nobody was taking care of them, not even themselves. This is one of life's most painful lessons. You cannot pour endlessly from an empty cup. You cannot continue giving away peace that you no longer possess. Eventually, something inside begins to break, not suddenly, but slowly. You begin feeling emotionally tired. You begin feeling unappreciated. You begin feeling invisible. You begin wondering why nobody values you the way you value them. But often the deeper question is this: have you been valuing yourself? Because the relationship you have with yourself quietly shapes every relationship in your life. People learn how to treat you by watching what you tolerate. They learn your worth by observing how you value yourself. They learn your boundaries by seeing which boundaries you refuse to protect. This is why self-respect is so important. Not because it changes who you are, but because it changes what you accept. A person who respects themselves no longer accepts treatment that constantly damages their peace. A person who respects themselves no longer apologizes for existing. A person who respects themselves no longer believes their needs are less important than everyone else's. Unfortunately, many people grow up believing that loving themselves is selfish. They believe putting themselves first is wrong. They believe their value must be earned through sacrifice. So they spend years trying to prove their worth. They work harder, give more, love more, sacrifice more, endure more, all in the hope that one day they will finally feel worthy. But worthiness does not come from proving yourself. Worthiness begins when you stop questioning your value. The Buddha taught compassion toward all beings. But one truth many people forget is that you are also one of those beings. You deserve the same compassion you freely give to others. You deserve the same patience you offer to others. You deserve the same forgiveness you offer to others. You deserve the same understanding you offer to others. Yet many people speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to anyone else. They criticize themselves relentlessly. They focus on every flaw, every mistake, every failure. Nothing they do ever feels enough. Even when they achieve something meaningful, the mind quickly moves the goalpost. It says, "You should have done better. You should be further ahead. You are still not enough." And over time, these thoughts become part of their identity. They stop seeing their own value. They stop recognizing their own strengths. They stop appreciating the person they have become. Instead, they constantly compare themselves to others. They compare their success, their appearance, their relationships, their progress, their lives. And comparison slowly steals their self-worth, because there will always be someone who appears more successful, more attractive, more accomplished, more confident. If your value depends on comparison, you will never feel enough. True self-worth is different. It does not come from being better than others. It comes from accepting yourself as you are while continuing to grow. It comes from recognizing that your value is not determined by achievements, approval, or perfection. Your value exists before any of those things. It exists because you are human. It exists because you are alive. It exists because your life matters. Many people spend years searching for validation from the world. They want someone to tell them they are enough, someone to tell them they are worthy, someone to tell them they matter. But the truth is that no amount of external validation can permanently fill a void created by self-abandonment. The world can praise you today and criticize you tomorrow. The world can celebrate you one moment and ignore you the next. If your worth depends on outside approval, your peace will always remain fragile. But when your worth comes from within, something powerful happens. You stop chasing validation. You stop begging for recognition. You stop trying to convince people of your value. Because you already know it. And when you know your value, you make different decisions. You choose healthier relationships. You set stronger boundaries. You stop settling for less than you deserve. You stop tolerating what constantly harms your peace. Most importantly, you stop abandoning yourself. The greatest relationship you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. You carry that relationship into every conversation, every decision, every challenge, every chapter of your life. If that relationship is built on criticism, doubt, and neglect, suffering follows. But if that relationship is built on respect, compassion, and trust, everything begins to change. The truth is simple. No one can truly value you until you stop abandoning yourself. No one can convince you of your worth if you keep denying it. And no one can give you the self-respect that only you can choose to practice. The moment you stop treating yourself like an afterthought, your entire life begins to shift. You stand taller, you speak more honestly, you trust yourself more deeply, you protect your peace more carefully, and, for the first time in a very long time, you begin seeing yourself the way you were always meant to be seen, not as someone who must earn their worth, but as someone who already has it. That realization changes everything, because the moment you truly value yourself, you stop betraying yourself. And the moment you stop betraying yourself, real freedom begins. Your freedom begins. The moment you stop betraying yourself is one truth hidden beneath every lesson in this journey. It is this: the greatest prison is not created by other people. The greatest prison is created when you repeatedly abandon yourself, when you ignore your truth, when you silence your intuition, when you choose fear over growth, when you choose approval over authenticity, when you hold on to what is hurting you, when you continuously place your own peace at the bottom of your priorities. Little by little, a distance begins to form between who you truly are and who you have become. And that distance creates suffering. Not because you are broken, not because you are weak, but because somewhere along the way, you stopped listening to yourself. Many people spend years searching for freedom in the wrong places. They believe freedom will come from finding the perfect relationship, the perfect job, the perfect opportunity, the perfect future. They keep looking outside themselves. Yet even when some of these things arrive, the feeling of peace never fully stays. Why? Because true freedom is not something that comes from outside. True freedom begins inside. It begins the moment you stop fighting yourself. It begins the moment you stop abandoning what your heart already knows. Most people think self-betrayal happens in one dramatic moment, but that is rarely true. Self-betrayal usually happens quietly. It happens every time you ignore a boundary that should have been protected. Every time you stay silent when your soul wants to speak. Every time you continue accepting what your heart knows is wrong. Every time you choose comfort instead of growth. Every time you betray your own peace to keep someone else happy. At first, these moments seem small, almost invisible, but over time, they shape your entire life. Because every choice either strengthens your relationship with yourself or weakens it. Every choice either builds self-trust or destroys it. Every choice either moves you closer to your truth or further away from it. The beautiful thing is that healing begins the exact same way. Not through one giant transformation, not through becoming a completely different person overnight, but through small acts of honesty. Small acts of courage, small acts of self-respect. One decision at a time, one boundary at a time, one truthful moment at a time. The Buddha taught that awakening is not about becoming someone new. It is about seeing clearly. It is about waking up from illusion. It is about returning to reality. And perhaps the greatest illusion many people live under is the belief that they must keep betraying themselves to be accepted, loved, successful, or safe. But none of those things are worth losing yourself. No relationship is worth abandoning your truth. No approval is worth sacrificing your peace. No comfort is worth giving up your freedom. Because the moment you lose yourself, everything else loses its meaning. You can have the approval of the world and still feel empty. You can achieve success and still feel disconnected. You can gain everything outside while losing everything inside. And that is not freedom. Freedom is being able to look at yourself honestly and know that you are living in alignment with your own truth. Freedom is trusting your own voice. Freedom is honoring your own values. Freedom is respecting your own peace. Freedom is no longer needing to pretend, no longer needing to chase, no longer needing to prove your worth, no longer needing to become someone else to deserve love. Many people are exhausted today, not because life is too difficult. They are exhausted because they are constantly fighting themselves. One part of them knows the truth. Another part keeps resisting it. One part wants peace. Another part keeps feeding old attachments. One part wants freedom. Another part keeps choosing fear. This inner conflict drains enormous amounts of energy. But the moment you stop fighting yourself, something remarkable happens. Your mind becomes quieter. Your heart becomes lighter. Your decisions become clearer. Life begins to feel less complicated, not because your circumstances suddenly become perfect, but because you are finally moving in the same direction as your truth. For the first time, your thoughts, actions, and values begin working together instead of against each other. That is where real peace begins. That is where real confidence begins. That is where real freedom begins. And perhaps this is the most beautiful realization of all. You do not need to become more. You do not need to prove more. You do not need to earn your worth. You do not need to chase your value. You simply need to stop abandoning yourself. You simply need to stop giving away the peace that already belongs to you. You simply need to stop betraying the wisdom that has been quietly speaking within you all along. Because deep down, you already know. You know what needs to change. You know what needs to be released. You know what needs to be honored. You know what needs to be protected. Your heart has known for a long time. The freedom you seek is not hidden somewhere in the future. It is hidden behind the choices you are afraid to make today. The life you desire is not waiting for you to become someone else. It is waiting for you to become fully yourself. And the moment you finally choose yourself, the moment you stop abandoning your truth, the moment you stop betraying your peace, a new chapter begins, not because the world changed, but because you did. And that is the moment true freedom finally enters your life. Before you leave, take a moment and sit quietly with yourself, not with your worries, not with your regrets, not with the voices of other people, just with yourself. Because after everything we have explored today, one truth remains impossible to ignore. The person who has been waiting for your love the longest is not someone else. It is you. For years, you may have ignored your own needs. You may have doubted your own wisdom. You may have stayed where your soul was hurting. You may have chased approval, carried old pain, obeyed fear, and forgotten your own worth. But none of that means you are broken. It simply means you have been human. And like so many people, you were searching for outside answers to an inside wound. The beautiful thing is that it is never too late to return to yourself. Never too late to listen to your heart again. Never too late to trust yourself again. Never too late to choose peace over suffering. And never too late to stop betraying the person who has walked beside you through every moment of your life. You. Imagine how different your future could feel if, starting today, you made one simple promise to yourself. A promise that, no matter what happens, you will not abandon yourself. You will not ignore your truth. You will not sacrifice your peace to keep others comfortable. You will not keep choosing what hurts you over what heals you. Because the moment you make that promise, something begins to change. The healing begins, the freedom begins, the journey home begins, and perhaps that is what all true wisdom is really about. Not becoming someone new, but remembering who you were before fear, attachment, and self-doubt pulled you away from yourself. So tonight, as this message comes to an end, carry this truth with you. You deserve the same love you keep giving away. You deserve the same compassion you show to others. You deserve the same understanding you wish someone would give you. And most importantly, you deserve to live a life that does not require you to betray yourself in order to belong. May you have the courage to choose yourself. May you have the wisdom to trust yourself. May you have the strength to let go of what no longer serves you. And may you finally discover the peace that has been waiting within you all along. Because the day you stop betraying yourself is the day your real life begins. If this message spoke to something deep inside you, take a moment and be honest with yourself. Which lesson felt the most personal? Which truth did your heart need to hear today? Share it in the comments below. Your words may help someone else who is silently struggling with the same battle. And if you are on a journey of healing, self-respect, inner peace, and awakening, subscribe to Golden Lotus Wisdom and join us for more timeless Buddhist wisdom designed to help you free your mind, heal your heart, and return to yourself. Remember, the relationship you build with yourself determines the quality of every other relationship in your life. Protect it, honor it, nurture it, because the day you stop betraying yourself is the day your transformation truly begins.